Hey guys, welcome to another MELÓMANA episode, and this one will be all about languages.
Regala-te ao meu amor, regala-te e passa bem.
Está no trabalho assombradas a aguardar.
Mais fácil é viver no passado. Alguém que me derruina e não vais ver
From a very early age, that I understood that composing in different languages could actually bring something into our songs and into the human voice and into our performance. So even though back then I only knew Portuguese and English, maybe a little bit of French already, I didn't have much more to work with, so those were the first languages that I started. But eventually I took advantage of an amazing tool called Google Translator that was actually my bestie back then. And sometimes I would write just the meaning of the things or the story that I wanted to say with that song, and I would just randomly search for the most rare language that I could find. I remember once I wrote a song in Swahili. I have no idea if it actually was accurate, but as you will see further, sometimes it's not all about the perfection or the grammar accuracy, but rather what is the advantage and what kind of things languages can actually bring us and give us as composers and singers. I also understood how easier it is to compose in English than in Portuguese, and I will tell you all about it further in this episode. But first things first, let's talk about languages. And let me just tell you something in advance. I'm only fluent in English, Portuguese, and Spanish. What I mean with all this is that I will be talking about more than these 4 languages in this video, and I don't intend to speak from an expert perspective because I'm not a professional translator or a native speaker of these languages. I'm just here to tell you the possibilities that they can actually give you to write and to invest more in your songs and in your search through world music. When I was younger and I entered to school, I realized that I was really bad at languages, and that was mainly due to the grammar itself. Let's just say that I've never been quite of a fan of rules and structures. I just couldn't understand why that specific vowel would represent a sound that in my head would be a different one. So all those things really messed up with my head, and I was terrible and I made a lot of mistakes, even in my own mother tongue. At the same time, that topic fascinated me because I liked it to be able to speak with people from other countries. And since my parents had a lot of foreign people at our home all the time, I wanted to be part of their conversations. Eventually, I wanted to find a way to go around this problem and manage to speak with these people from other countries. So I started to realize, what if we take the meaning out of the word? What is left of it? Sounds, music. And then I realize speaking languages is just like music if you take out the context, the meaning. Just like when you go to a foreign country and you don't know the language, when you arrive at first you hear a lot of mumbling sounds coming out from people's mouths, and it's quite funny and interesting because you have no association with anything else, so you cannot understand anything, so you just hear music. Basically, we could look at words, syllables, has rhythm, patterns that repeated will create a structure, and we could look at phonetics, way of speaking, just like we look at melody. Let's see the same sentence translated in different languages, and again, I am no native speaker of some of these languages. I am here just to try to make a little point. So I'm really sorry in advance for my pronunciation. Okay, taking as an example the sentence, the music of this heart. In English we can already see that the words are really short, the music of this heart. It's very rounded sounds, the music of this heart. It seems that these heart are almost like one. Everything is well connected. But now let's see this sentence in a different language. For instance, in my mother tongue, Portuguese. A música deste coração. How different it is. We can already see that some words are already longer than the English one. For example, heart, coração, has more syllables, or music, musica, again more syllables, then it would give the sensation that the sounds, especially the vowels, are very shy and they kind of are hidden in the throat, like a música deste coração. It seems almost that we are talking underwater. It's hard to understand all the sounds that are right there. Now let's see in Italian. La musica di questo cuore. This changes a lot. Italian, we can already see that it's such a melodic and wavy language. If we took out the rhythm and the meaning, it would be something like it has a lot of waving and melody. That's why Italian is so much used in opera and from many composers, because it's already a font of prime material full of sounds and music from itself. Let's go a little bit further away, just right to Japan. Kono kokoro no hongaku. Maybe it's just by chance, but we can see here in the sentence how much ho we have. Kono kokoro no ho 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 ho. This seems almost funny, but it's interesting if you look at it. If I could translate, if I was thinking about how could I translate this into a melody, maybe the ho, I would perhaps translate it into a low sound, a low pitch sound. This is very important, like I'll be also putting it into a pitch that will be comfortable with this position in my mouth, oh, because not all vowels and all sounds are comfortable in all pitches. So this is something very interesting to have in advance consideration when we are composing something. Let's change a little bit the sentence and put it like I have music in my heart. In German, that will be something like Ich habe Musik in meinem Herzen. German, for me, it's very accurate. Like the attack of the words are very precise. Ich hab, mein Herz. It's all very clear. Every word is very well defined. I also feel like German has a little bit of air, just like English. The heart, the Herz, ich, like there's a lot of air in those sounds. Even though they are not the same, they also have air. J'ai de la musique dans mon cœur, the same sentence in French. It's a whole new thing. It's a whole different sound. Just like the Italian, it's a little bit wavy, poetic, soft, and a little bit like the English, it's very connected. Dans mon cœur, in my heart. Everything is a little bit rounded, well connected. Obviously, these are just some examples and specific examples inside these sentences. If we would use other ones, it will be a totally different case. If until now this is a little bit confusing for you, don't worry, because I will give you the best example to put everything in clean plates. I don't know if you heard the soundtrack from the movie Tarzan. If you haven't, please do your homework. But the songs that were composed to that movie were written by the amazing Phil Collins. And I want to give here in a little parenthesis that Collins was also a big music reference for me while growing up. Closing parenthesis. Collins did not only compose and sang these songs in English, but he also sang them in Italian, German, French, and Spanish. How awesome is that? So I want to hear this following example in English and then in Spanish. I don't know if you could notice, but the Spanish version, it's a little bit more syncopated than the English one. And that's literally just because of the languages. Now that I've shared with you how much it changes from language to language, let me tell you my own experience on this topic. As I told you at the beginning, I understood from a very early age that it was very different composing in English rather than in Portuguese. Just take a look at this little fragment that I found of one of my first songs in English that I wrote with one of my best friends from teenagehood.
You know, yes, you know, there's so much to do, so why do you stay at home alone?
I don't know if your native language is English or not, but we can see here a very clear example of how short words can actually be in English sometimes. You know, yes, you know, there's so much to do. And this doesn't happen at all in Portuguese. We have longer words to say things. So English was easier with smaller words, easier to fit in the melody that we had in our thought. It's interesting actually, because back then when I was writing in English, a lot of people of my age who were also songwriters were writing. They also wrote in English as well. For many years I thought that was just because it was cooler, because English was very cool, rather than writing in Portuguese was boring. But in my deep opinion, I think we wrote it and we still write a lot in English because it's actually easier. The same thing happened for me with the Brazilian Portuguese and the Portuguese from Portugal. They might seem the same, but they are not. And if you are a Portuguese speaker, you will know what I'm talking about. But if you're not, it could be the same comparison as Britain and the States, Spain and Latin America. Like sometimes it's just about accents, but other times it's also about the words, the expressions, and the way of organizing sentences. Because in Portuguese from Brazil, they organize sentences in a different way than we organize in Portuguese from Portugal. That's the first difference. The other one, and the one that makes me believe and feel in my skin, in my personal opinion, that it's easier to compose in Brazilian or Portuguese from Brazil, is the fact that the accent helps a lot. We in Portugal have the tendency to put the accentuation of the word in the middle of the word, or in rare places that it's really hard to respect that same accentuation when we are composing. For example, if the accentuation it's in the middle, spectacular, that would be an English word that could help understand the example. Spectacular. The strong syllable, it's in the middle, spectacular. So if we would put spectacular in a melody like spectacular, we would be giving more emphasis to lur, the last syllable, than the actually tonic one. Rather, for example, than spectacular. This is another common error of putting the wrong accentuation at the beginning and not in the middle. A good one would be spectacular, spectacular. More articulated, more balanced. I'm just coming out with really stupid examples. But this happens a lot in Portuguese. Now, in Brazil, they open more the vowels. So the accentuation of the syllables are easier to go around, because we can actually... They are so open that all of them seem like the principal one.
Que falta eu sinto de bem, que falta me faz xodó. Mas como eu não tenho ninguém, eu levo a vida assim tão só.
Deu voz ao vento, luz ao firmamento, e deu azul às ondas do mar. Foi Deus que me pôs no peito um rosário de penas que vou desfiando e choro.
So in my opinion, it's a little bit easier to respect the language. Another thing, it's the rhythm. It's very different speaking a sentence in Portuguese and in the Portuguese of Brazil, because the Brazilian have this way of speaking that it's pure rhythm. Like, I have no way to describe it. Maybe I can give you an example. For example, sentence in Portuguese from Portugal with a Portuguese accent would be a gente que não sabe que mente ao seu coração. Rather, in Brazil, they would say a gente que não sabe que mente a seu coração. Gente que não sabe que mente. Gente que não sabe que mente. Gente que não sabe que mente. Tchaca, 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 tchaca. Can you see the difference? A gente que não sabe que mente. A gente que não sabe que mente. A gente que não sabe que mente. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It depends on what you're looking for. But again, this just means that it's very different writing in one than in another one. So When I'm struggling writing in Portuguese from Portugal, sometimes I go to Brazil and I write it in the Brazilian structure and pronunciation. And I actually like a lot of Brazilian music, so why not having the best of both worlds?
Que a cabeça não para de doer, gosta de sofrer. É que a cabeça não para de doer, gosta de sofrer.
Until now, I've been telling you how important it is to choose the right language to the song that you're writing or thinking about writing. But there's also another case where this song, it's the one telling you which language is the best one. And this happens a lot. At least in my case, it happens. There's different ways of writing and composing. Sometimes we start with lyrics, other times we start with harmony, other times we start with rhythm, and others with melody. There's plenty of ways of composing. But sometimes, and this happened to me, for example, once I was doing the harmony and then I was doing the melody, and then I was like, well, I need lyrics for this one. And I was playing and I had the melody on my head and I was singing in Portuguese and somehow it didn't fit well. It's not in Portuguese. And then I tried in English. No, English doesn't fit as well. So, and then it clicked it into my mind and I was like, oh yeah, this is totally in French. This is in French. And as soon as I realized it, I started to compose in French and everything fitted in place. So again, sometimes it's the song that it's telling you which language. Before I say goodbye, I wanted to leave you some personal tips in case you are thinking about giving it a try and writing in a different language. First of all, you don't have to know a lot of languages. You can ask a friend, a teacher, if he or she would be interested in writing a poem, a lyric, for you to later doing a music on it. You can also obviously start learning new languages and go to a language school. And you can obviously do the old-fashioned way of Google Translator. Now, let me give you my personal view on this last one. These online translators are good for some emergency situations, but they are not very accurate, especially when it's about the meaning and not so much about the literal translation of things. What you have to think about is what kind of writer you want to be. Do you want to be like a very accurate one, that all the grammar is right in place, the pronunciation it's flawless? Then I suggest you really find someone that can actually help you more than internet. But if you are a little bit more like me and you prefer to put aside perfectionism and accuracy and give more space to full creativity and sound search, rhythm search, then why not Google Translator? Or why not search for a poem like free of royalties and rights and just try to put music on it? Be always curious. To write in different languages, it means not only to write from scratch, but also learn tunes from other artists that are in different languages. Get familiar with the sounds, with the rhythms, with the aesthetics of that country's music. Go to YouTube and use this amazing feature of velocity and put it like as slow as you can and try to reproduce as well as you can the pronunciation of each word. It might be actually a very funny exercise. Last but not least, don't forget your own mother tongue. After all, it's the first language you've learned. It's, I think, would be one of the closest languages to your heart, perhaps the one that you can best communicate yourself. So never lose touch with that precious language that you have, no matter which one it is. One last tip. If you want to be very accurate and try to respect as much as you can the strong syllable in a word, you can try to match that syllable with the high-pitched note of the melody. That will help you putting emphasis in the strongest syllable instead of one of the weakest ones. And that's it for this episode. I hope you liked it. Again, this is just my personal journey and I'm still learning a lot every single day with these, but I just wanted to share what I've learned so far and to see what you think of this. Do you know any examples? Did you already try to write in different languages? How was your experience? Let me know and see you in the next episode.